After a dominating 3-0 win against Mexico, the USA will face off against Canada for the Nations League trophy. The US is coming into this game looking to go back-to-back in the Nations League, coming off of a dominating performance against Mexico. We saw Christian Pulisic score 2 goals, Ricardo Pepi score 1 goal. And in this video, I'm going to preview the game versus Canada and also take a look at some things that went well against Mexico. So obviously Thursday night, we absolutely dominated Mexico, a 3-0 victory. This is the first time that the US has beaten Mexico by 3 goals or more since the year 2000. And certainly in the first time since I've been watching in my life. I've never seen a more dominating performance over Mexico, guys. Like, that was just start to finish all over them. They didn't have any chances on goal, basically. They didn't threaten our goal at all. And it was just a brilliant team display. Some people that stood out for me, one is Sergiño Dest. Unfortunately, with his red card, he's suspended for tonight's final. I thought he had one of his best games in the US jersey, which was also a bit surprising considering his current club situation. I thought he looked very, very sharp out there, surprisingly. Some other great performances I thought stood out was obviously Christian Pulisic. He always shows up against Mexico. He had 2 goals. Honestly, should have had a third where he rounded Ochoa, but then took an off-balance shot and put it over the net. He had a solid performance. Now, a lot of people on the first watch, you might have thought Folarin Balogun had a pretty quiet debut. And I thought that as well, but looking back on the game, he actually got into some very, very good spaces. He also opened up so much space for our wingers, Tim Weah and Pulisic. With his runs into the midfield, he was kind of dropping deep. His hold-up play was great, and he really just made some very smart runs that allowed us to play wide and just attack the Mexican wings, and that's where we were deadly. Our second goal, you know, the ball played in from Weah out wide to Pulisic, great finish. And then I feel like that's one of the underrated attributes about Pulisic is that he finds himself in very good areas, especially in that penalty area in the box. He kind of just is very good on getting on the end of things. It kind of reminded me of his goal against Iran in the World Cup, where he was just kind of waiting for the ball to come in and he just pounced on it. And it was a very similar goal, I thought, the other night against Mexico. Another thing that kind of surprised me in the game was we didn't really struggle as much controlling the midfield as I thought. We went out with a pretty attacking-based midfield with Gio, Musa, and McKennie. And that's a lineup that doesn't really have a natural 6 in it, but we actually did quite well. Granted, it was a really poor Mexico performance, but with McKennie, his red card suspension being upheld for the final, we're probably going to have to either put in someone like Luca De La Torre or Johnny Cardoso. So that is a big loss because McKennie's really instrumental. And one thing I like about McKennie is that he kind of just floats outside the box. And I thought his link-up play with the wingers was very good. You know, he likes to play like the 1-2. He likes to do like a little back heel. He can get creative sometimes, but he's so dangerous when he just floats outside the box, almost as like an attacking like mid. He gets into really good positions there, and that's gonna be missed in the game against Canada. But I think what will happen is we're gonna put Luca in for McKennie, and I think that around like the 60th minute mark, depending on how the game's going, you know, one of them, either De La Torre or Musa, will be subbed out for possibly somebody like Johnny. So looking ahead to tonight's game against Canada, kind of how they're going to play, We all know they're a team who likes to sit back, absorb pressure, and then counter quickly. Some big players to watch out, obviously Jonathan David, who had another very good season with Lille in the French league. Also their star boy Alphonso Davies. He did not start the other game. He came off the bench against Panama and scored their second goal. Expect him to start tonight against the U.S. in this final. So he's going to they're both, our defenders are going to have to be on their best game and keep track of them, especially Jonathan David, who's so prolific in front of goal. I think that as far as our back line, there has been rumors on Twitter that Miles Robinson is out injured. If that's the case, I think what the coach will do is realistically put Walker Zimmerman in there, and that matchup kind of concerns me. If it were up to me, I'd like to see Trusty start, but it is also a big task to start in a final when you really haven't had any appearances with the national team. So that's going to be key, is really just not making errors and just give the ball away carelessly, especially kind of like in the midfield, because Canada will pounce on that and look to counter very, very quickly. And that's something that concerns me. You know, you got the pace. One of the fastest players in Europe is Alphonso Davies. So that's something we have to watch out for, is just reduce the amount of silly giveaways. And we didn't really have any against Mexico, although I think I do remember that instance where Matt Turner played a ball, I believe it was to Miles Robinson, and he kind of got beat to it. Nobody really yelled at him. There was a man on his back, and it almost resulted in a Mexico goal, but it didn't. So that's going to be key, because, you know, Canada, they're very organized defensively. They don't mind sitting back, absorbing pressure. And I think historically that's kind of where we struggle against. We saw it in the World Cup, you know, when Netherlands beat us, they were fine without having the ball. They just waited until we made our own individual errors and then just pounced on it. I mean, comparing Canada to the Netherlands is crazy. I mean, Canada isn't anywhere near the quality of them, but it is something to look out for. They're gonna kind of play with a chip on their shoulder, just because, you know, some players from Canada believe they're the kings of CONCACAF. They finished top of CONCACAF qualifying, so they're gonna come out hot. They're gonna be motivated to win their first trophy since probably like the 2000 Gold Cup, I think, was the last time they won a major trophy in CONCACAF. So that's what we can expect from Canada. Just, you know, defensively organized, look to counter quick through Davies and find Jonathan David up top. So the two suspensions, most likely we're going to have Joe Scally start at right back. Like I said, De La Torre in the mid. And then other than that, expect the lineup to remain unchanged. I think Balogun should still start. I thought he had a pretty solid debut. He did a lot of things that went unnoticed that, like I said, you know, allowed for other players to get in spaces and create some good opportunities. I also liked his pressing. I thought that was also pretty disruptive. So I thought he had a great debut, and I would expect him and I would want him to start again. Other than that, I think the lineup should remain completely unchanged. And if we just do the things we did against Mexico, then we should be lifting another trophy tonight. So coming up after the game, I'll have my video reaction. I'm also going to post another video about the rehiring of Greg Berhalter in that whole saga. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, enjoy the game tonight, and let's go lift another trophy.